The skies above Turkey just changed forever. And it happened in a way that sounds almost underwhelming. 13 minutes. That's how long the KAAN stayed airborne on its first flight. 13 minutes at about 8,000 feet, reaching around 230 knots. And if you're not a test pilot, you might hear that and think, that's it? But here's what you're missing. That short flight is the moment Turkey crossed a line that only a tiny handful of nations have ever crossed. The moment it proved a homegrown fifth-generation fighter can leave the ground, fly, and come back safely. Not a model, not a mock-up. A real aircraft, with a real runway behind it, and a real strategic message in front of it. Because KAAN isn't just a jet, it's a declaration. It's Turkey saying, we're done waiting for permission. And what you're about to discover will completely change how you think about air. Superiority, especially in a world where politics can shut down your supply chain overnight. Before we dive in, small favor. If you're finding this valuable, hit like and subscribe. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing, and it helps us keep bringing you deep dives like this. And if you're proud of homegrown aerospace innovation, wherever you're watching from, type proud in the comments. Because this story is bigger than one airplane. It's about who controls the sky and who controls the future. The real meaning of air superiority in 2025. People hear air superiority and they picture dogfights, Top Gun stuff, twisting turns, guns blazing, but that's not what modern air superiority really is. Air superiority today is a math equation. Who sees first? Who decides first? Who shoots first? And who stays alive long enough to do it again tomorrow? Fifth-generation fighters aren't just fast, they're information machines. Stealth, sensor fusion, electronic warfare, secure networking, internal weapons, and the ability to survive inside threat rings that would erase older jets. That's the world KAAN is trying to enter. And the fact it took off, even for just 13 minutes, matters more than most people realize. Because that flight didn't just test aerodynamics, it tested a national industrial ecosystem. And that's where the changes everything part begins. Segment 1. The first flight isn't the flex. The infrastructure is. Here's the first wow factor. The KAAN flight isn't impressive because it was long. It's impressive because it happened at all. A fifth-gen fighter program is not build plane, fly plane. It's build stealth shaping, build composites, build avionics, build software, build manufacturing tolerances, build test infrastructure, build a supply chain that doesn't collapse, and then try to make all of it work together in the real world. Turkey's own aerospace industry describes KAAN as a project designed to create the human capital and infrastructure to design and develop a modern fighter, specifically to replace F-16s. In the 2030s, that is the real milestone. Because once you have the ecosystem, you can build more than one aircraft. You can build upgrades, variants, drones, missiles. You can build leverage. And that takes us to the cliffhanger. Because the reason Turkey cares this much about leverage comes from a painful reality. A reality that hit Turkey hard. Segment 2. KAAN is what happens when your future gets cut off. Let's talk context. Turkey has been pushing hard for defense self-sufficiency for years. And one reason is simple. When you depend on foreign suppliers for the most sensitive parts of your military, you don't fully control your own deterrence. Reuters has reported that Turkey's self-sufficiency drive accelerated amid strained relations with the U.S., including sanctions tied to the S-400 purchase and Turkey's removal from the F-35 program. Think about what that means. You can have the pilots, you can have the doctrine, you can have the money, but if the parts, the upgrades, the software, the permission slips aren't yours, then your Air Force has an expiration date. KAAN is Turkey's attempt to take control of that clock. And now we get into the aircraft itself. Because KAAN isn't trying to be a little better than an F-16. It's trying to be something Turkey can build, control, and evolve for decades. So let's break down the features that make KAAN a real fifth-gen contender on paper, and why they matter for air superiority. Segment 3. Stealth plus internal weapons, the first gatekeeper. Here's the brutal truth. You can't buy your way into fifth generation with hype. If you don't have low observability and internal weapons carriage, you're not playing the same game. Turkey's own KAAN program description calls out low observability and an internal weapons. BAE as core new generation requirements alongside sensor fusion and situational awareness. That matters because external weapons turn an aircraft into a flying mirror. Radars love hardpoints. Missiles love pylons. Even clean fourth-gen jets become louder the moment you hang weapons underneath. Internal bays are the stealth tax. If you pay it, you can fight inside contested airspace. If you don't, you're a standoff platform. And that's why the moment KAAN becomes a true internal carriage combat jet, it changes Turkey's options in a real war. But stealth alone doesn't win air superiority. Stealth just gets you into the room. The next wow factor is what happens once you're inside. Segment 4. Sensor fusion. The jet that thinks faster than the pilot. 5th-gen fighters are not pilot plus radar. They're pilot plus battlefield computer. Turkey's KAAN documentation emphasizes increased situational awareness, sensor fusion, and decision support to reduce pilot workload. That language matters, because air combat isn't just about pulling Gs. It's about processing chaos, multiple targets, multiple threats, multiple sensors, multiple friendlies, and the pilot has seconds. So the aircraft has to become the filter. It takes raw data and turns it into a clean picture. It tells you what matters. It suggests what to do. That's how you win the see first, shoot first race. And KAAN is designed for that kind of cognitive warfare. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because the sensors don't just see, they can also fight. Segment 5. Integrated electronic warfare. Winning without firing. In older air forces, electronic warfare is a specialty aircraft, a jammer, an escort, a separate role. But modern air superiority is about building EW into the fighter itself. Turkey's KAAN feature list explicitly calls out new generation mission systems, including radar, electronic warfare, electro-optic systems, communications, navigation, identification, and 360-degree situational awareness built into the platform. Translation? KAAN isn't designed to just dodge threats. It's designed to understand the electromagnetic battle space, to jam, to confuse, to survive in an environment where missiles don't need to see you, they just need to be guided by a network. This is the part most people miss about 5th gen. The real advantage isn't just stealth, it's controlling what the enemy thinks is happening, turning their picture into static. And when you can do that, you can force mistakes. Now, quick retention check. If you're still with me, type KAAN in the comments. Because what comes next is the part that makes this aircraft a strategic weapon, not just a tactical one. Segment 6. Performance that supports. Stealth. Speed, altitude, and supercruise. A stealth fighter with weak performance is like a silent car with bad brakes. It might avoid attention, until it can't escape consequences. Turkey's published KAAN specs include a stated maximum speed of Mach 1.8 at 40,000 feet, a service ceiling of 55,000 feet, and a stated supercruise capability. Now, to be clear, published goals and operational reality are not the same thing, but the intent is obvious. KAAN is being designed to compete in the high-energy fight. Altitude matters for missile range. Speed matters for positioning. Supercruise matters because afterburners are basically, here I am on infrared. So the ability to sustain high performance without turning into a heat beacon is a big deal. And it connects directly to air superiority. The jet that arrives first, with energy to spare, controls the engagement. But performance isn't the final boss here, because the biggest determinant of modern air superiority isn't speed, it's independence. Which brings us to the most important twist in this entire story. Segment 7. The engine problem. The part that decides if KAAN becomes legendary. Ready for the hard truth? Right now, KAAN's prototype is powered by American-made General Electric F110 engines, the same engine family used on F-16S. And that matters, because engines are the heart of independence. You can build stealth shaping, you can build avionics, you can build weapons, but if you don't control propulsion, you don't fully control production pace, export approvals, or long-term sustainment. And there's more. Flight Global reported that Turkey received an initial batch of 10 F110-GE F129E engines for KAAN, with negotiations reported for additional engines amid U.S. export concerns tied to the S-400 issue. Think about that for a moment. Even as Turkey flies a national 5th-generation fighter, it's still negotiating the most critical component of the program through foreign channels. This is why KAAN is both a breakthrough and a test. Because the moment Turkey locks in an indigenous engine path that's real, tested, and producible, KAAN becomes a sovereignty machine. And until then, it's a 5th-gen dream with a bottleneck. That's not a knock. That's reality. And it's exactly what makes this story so important. Segment 8. Export power. Why one deal can change Turkey's position in the world. Now here's where the changes everything claim starts to feel justified, because KAAN isn't only about Turkey, it's about the global market for advanced fighters. In 2025, multiple outlets reported that Turkey and Indonesia signed an agreement framework for 48 KAAN fighters, described as the first export deal for the aircraft, even while it's still in development. That is enormous, because export demand is what turns a program from national prestige into sustainable production. It funds upgrades, it grows the industrial base, it creates political relationships, and it positions Turkey as a supplier, not just a customer. And let's be honest, there are countries that can't buy the F-35. There are countries that don't want Russian jets. There are countries that want an advanced option without being locked into one superpower's terms. If KAAN matures into a credible fifth-gen product, Turkey suddenly has leverage that goes way beyond its own air force. But we need to address the objection every serious aviation analyst is thinking right now. Segment 9. Is KAAN really fifth-gen? The objection that matters. Let's talk like adults. A first flight doesn't mean operational capability. A 13-minute flight doesn't mean it can fight. It means the aircraft flew. It means foundational systems worked well enough to get airborne and return. It means the program is real. But fifth generation is hard. War on the Rocks noted that achieving fifth-gen low observability requires advanced materials, coatings, integration with sensors and flight control systems, and an engine that supports a low signature, plus repeatable manufacturing and constant software-like updates. That's exactly the point. KAAN is a milestone because it starts the clock on proving all of that. Flight testing, avionics maturation, weapons integration, software blocks, manufacturing repeatability. This is not a one and done, it's a campaign. So when we say, it changes everything, we're not saying Turkey woke up with an F-22 overnight. We're saying the strategic direction shifted. Turkey is now building a pathway to air superiority that doesn't depend entirely on foreign approval. And in the modern world, that is power. The big takeaway: why KAAN's first flight matters more than the numbers. So what did KAAN's first flight really change? It changed the conversation. Turkey is no longer only a buyer. It's becoming a builder. And that matters because air superiority isn't just about dogfights. It's about industrial depth, software capacity, supply chain sovereignty, upgrade independence, export leverage, and the ability to evolve faster than threats. KAAN's first flight was 13 minutes, but the strategic shockwave could last decades. Recap: here's why KAAN's first flight changes everything for air superiority. It proves Turkey's fifth-gen fighter program is real, airborne, not theoretical. It's built around core fifth-gen requirements: low observability, internal weapons, sensor, fusion, and high situational awareness. It's designed with integrated mission systems, including electronic warfare and 360-degree awareness built into the platform. It aims for performance that supports stealth operations, including high-altitude and supercruise intent. It exposes the real challenge of independence, engines and export-controlled components. And it's already being positioned globally, with reported export momentum like the Indonesia Agreement Framework. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think KAAN becomes a true fifth-gen air superiority fighter? Or does the engine and systems integration bottleneck slow it down? Drop your take in the comments. And if you're proud of engineers and pilots pushing aerospace forward, type proud, so we know you're part of this community. Because the next era of air power isn't just being built by the usual names anymore. It's expanding, and that changes the entire map of air superiority. Until next time, stay sharp.